Hello and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to share with you Ark's 10 best tames for getting on with that grind. But just before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe as it really does help the channel. In at number 10 is the Casteroides, also known as the Beaver. This thing is an extremely useful tame for gathering wood, and it is okay for gathering things like silica pearls, as this thing is a reasonably good swimmer. But to be honest, what would you expect? This thing is a beaver. Also, if you're on the hunt for cementing paste as well, beaver dams are a great shout for getting all of that. And you can also get rare flowers, rare mushrooms, and I think even silica pearls from beaver dams as well. So it is definitely a great shout to go and raid those as well. But the beaver, obviously, as I said before, is a really good gatherer of wood. It means you don't even need to have something like a chainsaw to get all of that necessary wood. Also, on top of all of that, like the RG, the Casteroides saddle is also a portable smithy. I don't really know why it is, as it doesn't really have any involvement with metal gathering, but its saddle does act as a portable smithy, so if your tools break when you're out gathering with one of these things, you can actually repair them in its saddle, which just acts as a normal smithy. The Casteroides is definitely a tame that you should get at some point, but they can be a little aggressive when they're in larger groups. In at number 9 is the Bronto. This is probably Ark's best berry harvester, and obviously this is a grind. You're going to be grinding all of those narco berries for all of those narcotics, and if you can shell up for a Bronto, then you are definitely doing extremely good, as the Bronto has such a wide gathering range. It is absolutely insane how many berries you can gather with this thing just from one attack. A lot more than something like a Stego, a Parasaur, or even a Diplo, even though I tend to use a Diplo a lot more as they are smaller and a lot easier to tame. You can always shell out for a Diplo if you can't go the full stretch to do something like a Bronto. The Diplo is only a passive tame, so no tranks are required at all. But the Bronto is definitely the step up that at some point you should get, as it gathers so many berries. It is 100% worth it. In at number 8 is the Beelzebufo. Now, over the past couple of weeks, my opinion has changed quite a lot on this, and actually yesterday I tested it out, and it definitely is a very viable gatherer of cementing paste. And actually this thing is really a great shout if beaver dams for some reason don't spawn on your map, or if you have a really good level frog with a good level saddle, it can be a good shout to get one, as when these things kill insects, these things gather so much cementing paste, and it is really great if you want to do the insect cave on the island, which is located in the redwoods. Yes, you'll need to level up one to actually allow it to have enough health and enough damage to withstand those, but the amount of cementing paste gains you get from that is absolutely insane. And if you haven't played Ark before, then you wouldn't know how important cementing paste is for the game. It's used in things like saddles, weapons, and all of that kind of business. Even metal structures. It doesn't seem like that would be the thing for it, but yes, metal structures even use cementing paste, and many mods use it as well. It is definitely an essential resource, and gathering it is a lot better than crafting it, as the amount of chitin, keratin, and rocks you need to gather is absolutely absurd and not worth it. In at number 7 is the Basilosaurus. This is by far one of the best creatures to go into the ocean with and go and loot all of that ocean loot. It is also great for grinding through all of those ocean caves as well. This is a great shout for anything underwater. It deals a very reasonable amount of damage. It is immune to things like Tusos, jellyfish, and electric eels, which makes this thing just so powerful compared to any other creature. Even creatures like the Mosasaur do not have this ability. And also with the Basilosaurus on Genesis Part 2, these things are even better, as they have damage reduction on top of all of those stats which I have just previously mentioned. The Basilo only does have one real disadvantage, which is if it goes too deep, this thing will start taking damage, and also its taming method can be a bit of an annoyance as well, as getting rid of all of those mantas that are around it can be a very challenging task, even though it doesn't seem like it. Also, they are a passive tame, so taming can be a little slow. In at number 6 is the Snow Owl. Now, you may think this thing only spawns on Extinction, but it is accessible on many other maps, like I'm pretty sure this thing is accessible on Fjordur. And the Snow Owl is 100% worth your tame. With a simple trap or the net gun, I think you can net gun this. This is a very, very easy tame that will not really take you any time at all. The Snow Owl has a wealth of abilities. Firstly, its dive bomb ability, which it also does share with the Griffin. Except on the Snow Owl, it has been further refined and developed, and it feels a lot smoother, and for some reason feels a bit faster as well, but that might just be me. Also, on top of that, the Snow Owl has this kind of heat-seeking ability, which is really great for any of you PvP players out there. As you can see, any players that may be hiding in bushes, as it will see through all of these kind of objects, and they will have this glowing heat, which you can see on screen here. And that is such an easy way to detect people that may be raiding your base and you have lost them, so then you can quickly find them and dispose of them as you wish. Also, these things do have a healing ability as well, very similar to the Daedon, except this uses stamina and not food. Also, on top of all of that, it will heal enemy creatures and wild creatures as well, which can work in your favor, but it is definitely something to consider, as you might not want to use it in a raid right in front of the enemy creatures, as you'll be healing them as well, and it will also render you immobile, which may not be great if someone is trying to kill you. So definitely be careful when you are using this ability, and really take into mind when you're using it. Yes, compared to the Mana Garma on Extinction, this thing really does pale in comparison in terms of speed, but all of its other abilities makes this a much more useful creature for PvE, and I would say for PvP as well, except some of you may disagree with me there, as the Mana Garma really is overpowered even after that thing got nerfed. But overall, these things are also really good for getting that metal grind on. In at number 5 is the gas bags. Yet another creature that is originally on Extinction, but now can be found on other maps like Fjordur. This thing is definitely a great grinding creature for gathering things like metal and any other resources that have a really heavy carry weight. Also, on top of all of that, this thing's saddle doesn't even need a saddle to ride it. Yes, the gas bags does have a saddle, but that is only required if you need 2 people riding on it at the same time. And for this thing, it can be a very reasonable flying taxi if you do want to go around with your friend and gather up some metal. Except the main thing is, these things are very difficult to control, as they have these kind of gas flying control abilities, and I am absolutely terrible still to this day at controlling it. And also, if you did want longer fly times, as you may have seen in the B-roll a little bit earlier, you need to level up their oxygen stats, and obviously this will enable them to fly further distances as they can breathe in more air. Don't level up stamina if you're trying to fly longer distances. That simply is not going to work in any manner at all. Also, these things are actually reasonably good turret soakers, as when they breathe up with their gas, they have so much damage reduction, and you'll probably know that, as if you're trying to tame one and it blows up, you'll need a significantly larger amount of tranks to knock it out, as obviously it will have torpor reduction as well. But definitely be careful of when this thing runs out of gas and you come plummeting back down to the map. Remember to always dismount just before you hit the ground, so you'll take no fall damage, as you really do not want to lose your gas bags, as sometimes they can be a bit of a pain to tame. They are a lot better now with net guns, but it still is a real shame if you lose one of these things, as it is a bit of a hassle to tame them. Yes, it may not be the most difficult tame out there, but you really do not want to be losing this thing to fall damage. In at number 4 is the Mantis. Now this is by far one of my favourite Ark creatures, and it is an essential on maps like Scorched Earth and Ragnarok. And yes, some people may still think that the Mantis only spawns on Scorched Earth, but this thing also does spawn on Ragnarok as well, and that is definitely my preferred area to tame it, as you can use woolly rhino horns instead of using deathworm horns. Yes, you can use woolly rhino horns on Scorched Earth, but you do have to do a bit more transferring, so you might as well just do it on a map where woolly rhinos spawn, which is Ragnarok. And Ragnarok is a lot more friendly in its environment where the Mantis spawns as well. But enough about how to tame this thing, what about its grinding capabilities? This thing, if you didn't know already, or if you didn't look at the screen for some reason, can equip melee weapons. Yes, any kind of melee weapon. That be a pick, a hatchet, a pike, a sickle, whatever melee weapon you want. I'm not sure about tech weapons, but apart from that, you are good to go. This is great for doing any kind of meat gathering. It's very good at doing metal gathering, flint gathering, stone gathering, fiber gathering, maybe not berry gathering because it's not a berry harvester, but any resource that can be gathered via melee weapons, this thing has you covered on so many terms, and it is a really great harvester and Ark Grinder. In at number 3 is the Carcharodontosaurus. Now you may not consider this thing a harvester, well I would definitely disagree with you there. This thing is by far one of the best harvesters of meat in the game. The Giga would have been in this position, but the Carcharodontosaurus is so much easier to use in the Giga for gathering meat that the Giga doesn't even really deserve a place on this list anymore. The Carcharodontosaurus is a lot faster than the Giga. The Carcharodontosaurus has a lot more stamina than the Giga, which really makes this thing not a pain to use. And when its Blood Rage ability is at its fullest, this thing does even more damage than the Giga. I think it's about 1.5 times on average, so this thing is a true beast. Also, on top of that, you do not have to worry about the rage meter, as the Carcharodontosaurus simply doesn't have one, which is really great if you are harvesting some bigger carnivores. It's just one less thing that you do not have to stress over and worry that you will lose your tame over. But like every great creature, this also does have a downside as well, which is its taming method is a bit annoying at times, and it can be quite buggy as well. But if you did want a good guide on how to tame yourself a Carcharodontosaurus, you can go check out my Carcharodontosaurus guide on my channel. As you know, you may want to tame yourself a Carcharodontosaurus considering how good they are. In at number 2 is the RG. Now this is by far one of the best creatures for just gathering resources in itself. Yes, this isn't the creature that is going to be doing the resource gathering. That creature is in number 1, by the way, but this is the creature that's going to get you from point A to B and carry all of those resources around with you. The Argentavis is a really great tame, which is insane for gathering resources like metal, obsidian, crystal, etc. If it comes from a mountain region, this thing probably has some insane weight reduction on it. Also, its saddle acts as a portable smithy as well, so when you're harvesting with those weapons or the creature that is in number 1, you can quickly fix them up. And it is also great if you're on your travels and your armor's broken and you're wearing flak at the time, you can quickly repair it inside the RG as long as you have a bit of smelted metal inside its inventory, and it is a really great feature to have. Also, this thing is reasonably good for taming as well. Its taming method isn't that bad, and on top of that, this thing can carry a wealth of creatures, similarly to the Wyvern actually, which makes it extremely useful. And it has a secret hidden ability where if it eats a dead corpse, it will have some insane regen. And in at number 1 is the Anki. The Anki is by far the best creature for gathering metal. And if you've ever wondered, yes, you have the stone pick, then you have the metal pick. Surely there should be another tier of pickaxe. And in this case, that tier is the Anki. Obviously, you have the endeavours here as well, which is great for gathering things like stone, but for things like metal, which you're really going to be grinding a lot of, the Anki is the way to go. The endeavours simply is not going to gather any of those resources at the level that the Anki does. Also, the Anki can be picked up with the RG and is a really great pairing with it, as you can simply pick up the Anki with the RG and dangle it over some metal nodes, and it will simply swipe and gather up all of that metal. It is a super easy way to get metal, it's really efficient, and you're going to be gathering a lot of metal in really large quantities. And also, like the RG, this thing has great weight as well. I'm not sure if it has weight reduction, but you can always put it into the RG if you want that insane weight reduction, which is partly why they are a really great pairing. Don't really use this thing for combat though, even though it looks really tough. Yes, it has a lot of damage reduction, but its damage really does not hold up. But anyway, that is the end of today's video. What was your favourite creature on this list? And comment your top 10 creatures that you like to grind with in Ark down below. And I will see you all later. Bye.